Once upon a time in a land not too far away, there was a boy named Sammy who always wore the coolest shoes. These weren't just any shoes, oh no. They were magical talking shoes. Well, maybe they weren't that magical, but they could at least talk. And every morning, Sammy would put on his favorite pair of sneakers and go off to school. Now, these sneakers had a problem. They were very sneaky. They didn't want to be tied. Every morning it was the same thing. As soon as Sammy started to tie his shoes, they would wiggle and jiggle until one of them came untied. Sneaky the shoe would shout, "Hooray, I'm free!" Then he did jump around and do a little dance while Sammy chased him around the house trying to get him back in his shoe. It was quite a comical sight to see a shoe dancing on top of a refrigerator, wasn't it? Well, this went on until one day Sammy got both of his shoes on successfully and made it to school without one of them coming untied. He thought to himself, "I finally got those sneaky shoes beat." But little did Sammy know that Sneaky had a big surprise planned for him. As Sammy sat down at his desk, Sneaky shouted, "Woohoo, time for some class chaos." First, when Mrs. Periwinkle asked Sammy to come read the next page in story time, Sneaky pulled on Sammy's shoelaces and made him trip as he walked up to the bookshelf. All the other kids laughed, and even Mrs. Periwinkle had to giggle at the funny scene. Then during recess, Sneaky thought it would be hilarious if he untied Sammy's shoe completely so that he would trip while playing tag. But Sneaky didn't count on how fast little Billy was. Billy ran over and peeked inside of Sammy's shoe. When he saw what Sneaky was up to, he quickly yelled, "Hey, you can't do that." Sneaky responded, "Oh yeah, and what are you gonna do about it?" With a wink, Billy took off running, and before Sneaky knew it, he found himself tied to the jungle gym with the shoelaces. Sammy came over and asked what happened to Sneaky, but Billy just shook his finger and said, "You should have known better than to mess with me." When it was time to go back inside, Sammy noticed he still had one shoe on, but where was Sneaky? He looked all around, but his shoe was nowhere to be found. Sammy figured he must have lost it somewhere outside, and he felt a little bit sad. After all, Sneaky wasn't just a shoe, he was a friend. Then Mrs. Periwinkle called out, "Shoo, is that you?" She held Sneaky in her hands. It turned out Sneaky had snuck into her classroom and was hiding underneath her chair. When she picked him up, she asked, "What are you doing here?" Sneaky replied, "I wanted to play, but Billy tied me up." Mrs. Periwinkle said, "Being tied up isn't funny, Sneaky. It's actually pretty mean. Do you think it's fun when someone ties up your laces so you can't play?" Sneaky felt a little embarrassed. He hadn't thought of it like that before. She continued, "Shoes aren't supposed to be untied during the school day. You're supposed to be tied so that you can help your friend Sammy learn and play without tripping over your own feet." Sneaky thought about this for a moment. He realized Mrs. Periwinkle was right. He didn't want to be a mean shoe. He wanted to be a good shoe. "But I don't want to be tied," he said. "I want to be free." Mrs. Periwinkle smiled and said, "Well, you can be free after school. How about we make a deal? You stay tied while you're in school, and then I'll untie you and you can run and jump and play as much as you want afterwards." Sneaky thought this was a great idea, that so Mrs. Periwinkle tied Sneaky back onto Sammy's foot and said, "There you go. Now you're ready for another fun day at school." The rest of the day went by without a hitch. Sneaky stayed tied and didn't cause any trouble. In fact, he even helped Sammy focus on his work. After school, Sammy and Mrs. Periwinkle went over to the jungle gym so she could untie Sneaky and let him play. As soon as she finished, Sneaky shouted, "Freedom!" Then he started jumping, running, and spinning around faster than ever before. He loved being able to zoom around without tripping over his own feet. He played so hard that he forgot all about how he felt the first time Billy tied him up. He was so grateful to have such a nice friend who wanted to play with him. Together, they slid down the slide, swung higher and higher on the swings, and even climbed to the top of the jungle gym. As the sun began to set, Sammy's mom drove over and said, "Time to go home, buddy." Sammy hugged his mom and asked if he could invite Billy over to play tomorrow. "Of course," she said. "It's always nice to have a friend over to play. Just remember to share your toys and be kind." Sammy and Sneaky waved goodbye to Billy and headed home. Sneaky couldn't wait to tell Sammy all about how much fun they had at school. But when they got inside, Sammy noticed his other shoe was missing. He looked all around, but the shoe was nowhere to be found. Sammy said, "Oh no, what am I gonna do? I'll never find another shoe to match this one." Sneaky replied, "Don't worry, Sammy. We'll find a way." Then he whispered to Sammy, "I think I know where your other shoe is." They went outside and looked around until Sneaky spotted something under the porch swing. "Is that you?" he shouted. And sure enough, there was Sammy's other shoe, but it didn't look the same. One side was blue and the other side was red. Sneaky thought it looked really cool. He said, "Sammy, why don't you wear two different colored shoes every day? That way you'll never have to worry about matching them." Sammy thought this was a great idea. He put on his mismatched shoes and went off to bed. From that day on, Sammy never had any problems keeping his shoes tied. And even though Sneaky liked to pretend he was free sometimes, he knew that being tied was what allowed him to play with Sammy and have fun at school. And that, my little learners, is the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this silly tale of untied trouble, make sure to give us a big thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on our fun new cartoons for kids.